So there is a common perception that those studies lack methodological rigor, that they are subjective. Those perceptions can be true to less or more extent, depending on the study itself. Therefore, people doing discourse analysis and also pragmatic analysis of discourse have decided to partly address this issue of subjectivity by incorporating corpus-based approaches. Corpus-based approaches to discourse studies allow the use of objective criteria to select the texts that will be part of the study. It also allows collecting more texts than in traditional discourse studies. It allows also for compiling metadata or variables like, for example, the genre of the text, some contextual information about where the texts have been produced, author information like gender, age, background, experience, and so on and so forth. So this element of subjectivity was, we are aware of that, and we introduced these corpus-based approaches to address this issue. However, there are still growing concerns about qualitative research, especially in terms of the way manual coding is conducted. So there are growing concerns about research ethics and transparency in coding, which also, an issue. There are growing concerns because if there is a lack of transparency, then there is a greater subjectivity in those studies. So another way of addressing those concerns is by assessing the reliability of coding. Now, reliability is traditionally conceived as, in quantitative terms, as the measurement of error in manual coding. Reliability provides readers with an estimate of confidence that coding was performed in a consistent way with an acceptable level of error. So we accept that there is a certain amount of error even when we do manual coding, but that error should be acceptable by the community. Reliability typically involves a set of procedures that are referred to as intercoder reliability measures or intracoder reliability measures, where we have two or more codings of a selected data set that are compared to see the extent to which they are similar. So for intracoder reliability measures, one coder only is involved, but two or more codings of the same data set is carried out. For intercoder reliability measures, two or multiple coders are involved. Now, these ICRMs, so intercoder reliability measures, have two main objectives. The first objective is, and the major objective is really to reduce the number of errors in coding. And therefore leading to a more efficient coding performance, and therefore attesting to the fact that we can really rely on the coding of the data. And the second objective is to produce a more robust coding protocol by making more explicit the decisions made when we are coding the data. These two objectives are important because they will demonstrate the quality of your research and therefore establishes its credibility in the community and therefore your credibility as a researcher. It also, reliability is also very important because it increases your chances to be published in reputable journals. I should note that the second objective tends to be overlooked when we are reporting reliability measures in corpus-based discourse studies. So we tend to focus more on demonstrating that our coding performance is efficient, that the amount of systemic or random errors is low or at least acceptable, rather than on making sure that we are being transparent and that our coding scheme or coding protocol is a robust one and a reliable one. So despite the importance, of reliability here, It's not implemented as widely as we might think, and this has been reported by studies like Larson et al. 2020 and Plonsky and Derrick 2016, but it's also one of the findings in our own study when we surveyed a corpus of corpus-based discourse studies to see whether they implemented reliability or not. And here, when I say not implemented as widely as we might think, it's really whether quantitatively or qualitatively. When it is implemented, there is a focus on the quantitative dimension of the reliability construct. So providing a reliability coefficient or percentage agreement or both, right? So the focus is really on that quantitative dimension. The qualitative dimension, or the details about the coding process, decisions that we're taking, tend to be missing, or they are not accounted for insufficiently. And generally, qualitative reports, if they are present in those studies, are often reduced to cliché statements such as any cases of disagreement were discussed by the two coders and agreement was reached. And sometimes you find even exactly the same sentence across various papers, different papers. I really like this quote by Plonsky and Derrick, who perceptively see that reliability estimates in some studies are not treated as a meaningful component of studies, but rather as a kind of box to check in author submission guidelines. So because we know that the reviewers or the editor would ask for a reliability measure, then we would like to do it, okay, because just to check that box and to say, well, okay, this study is really reliable and it can be reviewed by the journal. And this is the reason why we are advocating for a mixed method approach to reliability in corpus-based discourse studies that combine both a quantitative and a qualitative approach or dimension. I will start with a quantitative approach to reliability, which is the most commonly talked about when we talk about the reliability task. So the quantitative approach consists in calculating various reliability scores. These can be consist in reliability indices or percent agreement. So reliability indices are chance-corrected statistics that eliminate agreements that occur only by chance. And we do have a few reliability indices that we can use depending on the type of data that we have and on their robustness too. So for example, we have Cohen kappa, we have Pearson, we have Fleece kappa, we have Krippendorf's alpha. All of these coefficients are or can be used to assess reliability of coding. We also have percentage agreement, which only measures the frequency of agreement between two codings or two coders with no chance-corrected statistics. So it's a little bit less robust statistically when compared to reliability indices, but it tends to be reported in combination with reliability indices. Some studies report only percent agreement with no reliability index. Now, this table it really focuses on reliability indices. There is the example of the kappa value, so it's a reliability index. There are scores in column 1, and you need to find, like, you see which score you get, and then you assess, okay, what that score means using the second column, so strength of agreement. So let's say if you obtain 0.21, then it means that reliability is fair. If you get 0.61, then there is substantial agreement, and so on and so forth. So that's the meaning. This is what we mean by assessing the strength of agreement when we have a reliability index. Now, moving from the quantitative approach to the qualitative approach to reliability. Nourouzi in 2021 refers to this as the diagnostic function of ICRMs. What do we mean by a qualitative approach? It means that the researchers would code decisions, would report, the coding decisions explicitly and comprehensively. So it's really built around the principles of transparency and comprehensiveness. Transparency means being precise, being very clear about the kind of decisions that were taken. Comprehensive meaning providing a complete picture, a comprehensive picture about the coding process, the coders, and for example, the type of coefficients that were used and why they have been used that way. For example, in a qualitative approach to reliability, we would report the nature of disagreements, the way these disagreements were resolved. We would provide information about the coders, especially if the coders are external coders to the study and not the authors themselves. Information about the training of coders, rounds of reliability, and so on and so forth, in a way that is accurate, precise, and very clear. Now, lack of transparency and comprehensiveness in reporting those coding decisions would, first of all, obscure the decision-making process and will affect the reader's assessment of a study's reliability. So when someone is reading your paper, they need, in addition to your own evaluation of reliability in a quantitative way, to assess whether they can rely on the findings of your study. They can really trust them, and use them in their own research. So this is just to illustrate, the way reliability can be conceptualized. So it can be conceptualized quantitatively, qualitatively, or you can use a mixed method approach. And of course, in this study, in our project, we advocate for this mixed method approach, especially when we are dealing with discourse studies and corpus-based discourse studies. We advocate for the combination of quantitative and qualitative methods when we are assessing reliability of coding. I would like to perhaps stop my PowerPoint now and share a Word document, a sample reliability report that we use in our own project, and that can be used by researchers and students to plan for the reliability task in their own study, but also to report the way reliability has been measured in their own study. So I'm going just to quit the PowerPoint here, and try to share the Word document. Do you see that?
Yes, but
yes, right, okay. So that's a sample reliability report, which starts with an introduction saying, well, this report describes the process of intercoder or intracoder reliability measures, the reliability results, and their discussion. But then it provides various sections that reflect also the way we should approach the reliability task in our study. So I'll start with the first section, which is the ICRM process. So here we are describing the various stages of the reliability process that we conducted in our study. So stage one is the training, the selection and training of other coders. So here you provide information on how coders were recruited and trained. This is especially so when they are external coders. Their academic and professional status, whether they are research assistants, students, MA, PhD, or whether they are fellow researchers like postdocs or doctoral students or doctors. It's also very good and very useful to provide information about their experience in annotating linguistic data in general, so annotating linguistic data in general, but also experience in annotating the particular discourse phenomenon that the study is about, so that we know that the extent to which they are experienced or familiar with the constructs. After training the coder, we need to select the data from the corpus. So the reliability can be, of course, measured on the whole corpus, but we are not obliged to do so. You can select kind of like some researchers select 10% of the data. We did select 20% of the data from our corpus to do the reliability measure. So you need to mention the percentage of the data that was used to implement the ICRMs and the way it was selected. So did you select this randomly, or were there some criteria behind the selection of those texts to be used for the reliability task? Stage 3 would be calculating the reliability, in terms of the quantitatively, right? So calculate reliability, you need to mention how reliability was calculated, which software did you use, the type of coefficient that you used and why. We have different reliability coefficients, and some of them are used for particular data rather than other ones. Some of them, it's reported some of them are more robust than others, but that's something that is also questionable. We'll perhaps go back to this in the discussion part. Notes about any missing values. If coder 2 coded the data but forgot to code 1 or 2, for example, linguistic expressions or phenomena, we need to report that. Then stage 4, after you calculate reliability quantitatively, we need to go and look at the disagreements between the two codings. So we need to mention the number of disagreements and the nature of disagreements. And I'm going to go back in a few seconds on this issue of nature of disagreements. Then reporting, and we are moving to the qualitative assessment of reliability. We need to move to the discussion of disagreements. We need to report how disagreements were discussed, the nature of consensus that was reached, if any. If there is no consensus, then we need to explain why. And then we need to go and say, well, after the reliability task, we revised the coding scheme, and this is the final coding scheme that we adopted to annotate or to code the whole data. We need also to integrate a note on whether the data was recorded based on the upgraded scheme. If you coded the whole data and then you moved to do the reliability measure, and there were changes, then you need to say that you also revised the whole coding based on the upgraded scheme. A note on whether reliability was calculated again after the second coding. So sometimes you calculate reliability, you are not satisfied with the score, there is like fair agreement or sometimes low agreement, and you revise the coding scheme, you discuss with the other coder, you code the data again, and you need to calculate again reliability to ensure that for the second coding or even for the third coding, reliability has improved. So you should mention that too. Then we report the ICRM results and the discussion, so all of this should be reported. Perhaps something that we really would like to stress is that reliability measures should be mentioned for each variable that you are coding rather than just providing a general reliability index for the whole coding. There are many reasons for this, and especially because many of the categories that we annotate differ in the extent to which they are problematic or not. So some categories are pretty straightforward, others are more problematic. So you might sometimes find a category that has a very high reliability score and another one that has a low or even negative reliability score. So each category should be assessed in terms of reliability rather than just like kind of aggregating all the scores into one single general reliability score. Now, when we are reporting the quantitative assessment of reliability, we need to present the results obtained through the software or the utility tool that you used for all the variables that you coded. So here is just a sample of ICRM results that we obtained via recall2 for 15 variables that we coded. We included the percent agreement, the coherence kappa, the number of agreements, the number of disagreements, the strength of agreement for each single variable. Then we move also to the qualitative analysis or interpretation of the reliability measures. We need to outline all potential causes of disagreements. We designed figure 1 based on the literature that identifies the reasons or potential reasons why disagreements occur. For example, we found 4 major categories. We found that there are systematic human errors due to the misapplication of the coding protocol, due to a lack of clarity in the scheme itself, due to missing codes in the scheme. So these are the type of errors that we would like to avoid because they are related to the scheme that we are using to code the data. But we also have other types of errors, like random human errors due to fatigue, due to lack of attention, due to boredom, due to incomplete coding. So you skip, one category, you don't code the category, you just skip it for one reason or another. There is another reason for disagreements is that there is what we call the nature of the coding decisions themselves and the interdependence of some variables. I'll go back to this in the PowerPoint in another part. And there is the nature of data also. Okay, so there are some inherent ambiguities in the data, in the language. There are different valid interpretations of the same linguistic phenomenon that is something that we should actually live with. Then, after mentioning all the potential causes of disagreements in the ICRMs, we need to report the outcome or the outcomes of the reliability task. We need to discuss the limitations of the task. For example, we had, limited time to train the external coders, and there are also other limitations that are inherent to the reliability coefficients themselves. And as I said, I will go back to these, to some of these issues in a few minutes. Okay, so that's just a sample reliability report that we filled with our own study, the reliability results that we found. But we wanted also to present it as is, so that it can be something that researchers rely on when they want to think about how to start thinking about the reliability task. I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, I have. Okay, so we do think that a reliability report should be a mandatory part of many types of corpus-based discourse studies. There might be other types of corpus-based discourse studies that do not lend themselves to reliability measurement, but we think that it should be a mandatory part and not an optional part of such studies. Yes, we provided a sample report for reliability, but the way it's organized, the way it's presented should be left to the discretion of researchers. And a summary of the report should be included in the paper. So this report probably you won't be able to include it in your paper if you are publishing. Perhaps if you are doing a PhD, that's possible, but if you are publishing a paper or would like to publish a paper, then that full report won't it won't be possible to publish it at all, but you need to include a summary of it in the paper. However, it's recommended that we share the full report via, if you are publishing it as a paper, of course, via the journal supplementary materials section, if the journal has a supplementary material section. If it doesn't have a supplementary material section, you can share it via a number of freely accessible repositories, such as IRIS, which is the Instruments and Data for Research for Language Studies repository, where you can not only share it, but you can also get a DOI number for it. So people who are interested in, for example, reporting or citing your reliability task can do so using that DOI number. Now, as you perhaps are noticing, reporting, planning for and implementing reliability is quite a substantial part of the research work that we do. So it can be challenging in many respects, and it takes a lot of time from the whole research project that you are doing. So in this second part of my presentation, I would like to point to some of the challenges that we encountered and that I also personally encountered because I've done so many reliability tasks throughout different research projects. So some of the challenges that we tend to encounter, and I will try to provide some practical solutions to address those challenges. I will start with the first challenge, which are practical constraints. And I would like to focus on one specific practical constraint, which is the lack of funding to recruit and train additional coders. So, as I said, it can be time-consuming to do this, being trained, coding, discussing disagreements. It's not something that someone can really do for free. So you don't have necessarily the money to pay the person to do the reliability task. So in that case, there are some practical solutions that you can think of. The first solution is for students, MA or even PhD students, where you can collaborate with each other. So each one engages in the other person's reliability task. So I will be second coder for your study and you will be the second coder for mine. And here you are helping each other perform the task and improve the quality of your study while you are also learning from the process itself. It can be also a task that is performed by supervisors with their students, where we have the outcome would be sometimes upgrading the research quality of that PhD or that MA dissertation, but it can also be something that you can use to co-publish with the student. So co-publishing is also with peers, so you can collaborate with someone, and one of the things that you can do is engage in the reliability task, but also in providing editing or even discussing the whole paper with your peer and co-publishing together part of it at least. If you cannot do any of these, or you don't find a second coder for one reason or another, then at least we can do intra-coder reliability measures. You code, a selected data set from your corpus or the whole corpus altogether, and then you code it after a certain amount of time. You code it again, and you compare the two codings, and you perform what we call quantitative and qualitative assessment of reliability. However, whichever solution you find, whether it's inter or intra-coder reliability measure, you need to adopt a mixed method approach. So we need to be as transparent and as explicit as possible about the coding decisions that we have implemented in our study. The second challenge is an insufficient awareness of the importance of reliability, perhaps coupled with a training of insufficient or lack of training, in the reliability task. And practical solutions would be, of course, methodological courses or seminars, workshops that are really geared towards this particular issue of reliability. Also getting involved in peers' reliability tasks, so that would require autonomous work, but getting involved in doing a reliability task with other people will help you understand the kind of task, the kind of subtasks that are involved and the kind of discussions that you have. These are some things that you can do to really be trained in doing or engaging in reliability tasks. Challenge 3 is getting low reliability scores, and that's, I think, the most challenging one. Okay, so it's that moment when you open your eyes and you will see that you have low or negative reliability. Of course, one of the reasons might be that there are issues with your coding scheme, that some categories are not clear enough, that they have not been explained enough, that there is an overlap with the categories, that there are no examples illustrating how this category is reflected in your corpus. But here, I'm not going to, for systemic human errors, so human errors or low reliability scores that are due to the fact that your coding scheme is not very good, what you can do is really go back to those issues and revise the coding scheme again and again, discuss the disagreements, clarify, and then do the reliability task again. So here we have what we call multiple rounds of reliability till you have categories that are clear for the other coder and till you have a pretty much acceptable reliability score. But here in this section, I'm not going to talk about low reliability scores or even negative reliability scores that are due to issues in your coding scheme. You might not have issues in the coding scheme, but you get low or negative reliability scores. So I would like just to explain why you might get those low reliability scores, despite the fact that things are clear and the coding protocol is a good one. So low reliability scores can be due to, first of all, the nature of discourse and pragmatic studies themselves. Typically in discourse analysis, or when we are doing pragmatic studies, values lower than 0.6 tend to be actually the norm rather than the exception. So we tend to have not very high values when we are engaging in discourse and pragmatic studies. And this is due to many reasons, like inherent ambiguities in the language, different but valid interpretations of the same linguistic phenomenon. So you have an interpretation and the other coder has another interpretation. It's not like one or the other is wrong, it's just that the two of them, based on the context, okay, of the text that you are coding, both of them can be valid. So that's one thing, okay, that you should be aware of, that you are engaging in studies that are pretty subjective in terms of the interpretation of the data. A second reason has to do with the properties of the reliability coefficients themselves. So sometimes low or negative scores may occur when sometimes all of your responses and that of the other coder fall into one single category. So for example, let's say that you have a variable or a category gender, and there is female and male. And in your data, because your data is skewed towards, for example, females, everyone is going to annotate female, right? So it's not because you are disagreeing on the value, but because the data itself is skewed towards one value rather than another. So in this case, you will find that you have a percentage agreement of 90% or 95% or even 100% for that particular variable. But then when you look at the coefficients, you find minus something. So it's not even low, it's really a negative reliability score. And one of the reasons is that the nature of the reliability coefficient itself measures observed disagreement. Doesn't expect that you would agree that much on that particular value. So the reason is that you have what we call a skewed distribution or an even distribution in favor of one code rather than another. You should be aware of the fact of this to be able to interpret, why you are getting the low or the negative reliability score. So there are different reasons why you might get this. Of course, we don't want to have low or negative reliability scores because our coding protocol is not robust enough. It's very weak, it's not clear. That's something that we should really avoid. But even so, when we are pretty much confident about the coding, about our interpretation, you might get, let's say, low or negative reliability coefficients here. Now, what can you do? First of all, you need to report and explain the low values. So they should not be hidden under the carpet. So like I have low values, I'm not going to report reliability coefficients. I'm going only to report the percentage agreement. They should be reported, but you need to explain why you are getting these to the reader. You also need to adopt a mixed method approach to reliability. You need to explain the type of decisions, the nature of the categories, the nature of disagreements that happened, and the way you reached the consensus. For people reading your work to understand the extent to which your study is reliable, despite the fact that you don't have such a very high or almost perfect reliability score of coding for one particular variable or category rather than another. So that's it for challenge 3. Challenge 4 is something that we encountered in our studies, that those low reliability scores that we got for some variables, not all of them, are due to the interdependence of some coding decisions. And I call this the domino effect. So, for example, this is not from our corpus, it's not from a corpus-based discourse study, but it's when you're annotating, for example, a part of speech, for example, like quite. So quite is an adverb, it's a high-level decision. And then once you put that it's an adverb, your coding scheme selects, what type of adverb is it? And instead of, for example, providing, you provide frequency, whereas it's not a frequency adverb. So that's a low-level decision. So here, your high-level decision is correct, but your low-level decision is not correct. So you have one error. Let's say that you find quiet and you annotate it as an adjective and not an adverb. So that's a mistake at the high level. At the high level, it's a high-level decision of coding. So if you make this mistake, if you annotate it as adjective, you will have values under adjectives that says descriptive or attributive, and you will make another error. You say that's descriptive. So the high-level decision impacts the low-level decision. If you make a mistake at the high-level decision, it gives another mistake. So you have here in the second example, you have 2 mistakes, 2 errors. And the first one, you have only 1 error, right? So here, this low reliability score sometimes is due to the interdependence of some coding decisions rather than a problem in the category itself. One of the practical solutions is, if possible, use independent variables, but that's not all the time possible. Some variables or some categories are linked to each other. If it's not possible, then you need to explain how your coding decisions, or at least some of your coding decisions, are interdependent. Another practical solution that we found is that for those categories, we first conduct the reliability task at the high-level variables. So, for example, here at the part of speech used adverb, adjective, we ensure that we have a high level of reliability, or at least an acceptable level of reliability for those higher level decisions before moving to the low level decisions. That's another way of approaching it. Right. And I would like to finish this presentation with some resources, okay, that you can use to implement the reliability task. Of course, in this presentation, I have advocated for a mixed method approach to reliability. I've also provided a sample reliability report that you can use, or at least that can inspire you to plan for your own reliability task. But there are resources that can help you to calculate reliability coefficients when you are using a quantitative approach, and references that you can refer to that are specific to corpus-based discourse and pragmatic studies that you can read to understand that the issues that you have with reliability are not your own. So you're not on your own facing those challenges, but those challenges are pretty much popular among researchers. So different researchers experience the same challenges when they are annotating corpus-based discourse studies. So the first resource that I would like to draw attention to is an online utility platform termed Recall, developed by Professor Dean Freeland. This is something that you can find online, and here is the link. It's designed to calculate reliability coefficients and observed agreement percentages, which is pretty much straightforward and convenient, but also strong enough. So it's a robust tool. It's not a kind of tool that you find in the internet. It has been developed since 2010. Until now, it is being updated through various options, included or revised by Professor Freeland. The tool handles intra and intercoder reliability measures, so it really focuses on the codings. It handles several reliability coefficients, not only one, and multiple coders, more than 2 coders. It provides step-by-step guidance to the preparation of the Excel files that you need to upload in the platform, and for you to have all the coefficients, the percentages for your reliability task. I remember that when I first came across Recall, I wanted to check whether it was kind of like a reliable tool for reliability. And I remember that I did the reliability task on ESPSS, and I did it also on Recall, and I found pretty much the same results. So it's a very robust tool. It's a popular tool also among researchers. However, of course, you can use SPSS if you are already doing different types of analysis on ESPSS. If you are using R, then you can also use R because both of them would do this. But if you are just using, you just need something, a utility tool for the reliability measure, I found this is a platform that is quite convenient and pretty much straightforward. Professor Freeland is very accessible also by email, so whenever you have things that you don't understand about the scores that you get, then he's pretty much very accessible and can explain why you got, for example, those reliabilities by checking on the data that you have uploaded in the platform. I will end with the useful references that I used in this presentation, but that are very, very interesting for people who would like to know more about reliability in corpus-based discourse studies or in discourse and pragmatic studies in general. So we have, I've selected 10 of them. I would like to focus on the fourth one, for example, Haber, Dixon, and Larson, 2023, an article entitled Towards Increased Reliability and Transparency in Projects with a Manual Linguistic Coding. So it's pretty much very specific and very useful to read. Also, Larson, Paco, and Plonsky, 2020, who investigated inter-rater reliability in learner corpus research, insights from a collaborative study on adverb replacement. That's something that really explains and describes the way coding was conducted and the various issues that arose when they were trying to annotate adverb replacement in their corpus. There is also Nourouzi in 2021 that is pretty much interesting as an article where he makes this difference that we also are making in this project and in this presentation, quantitative, qualitative assessment of reliability. He refers to them as the reliability function of coefficients and the diagnostic function of the reliability construct. But it's really within the same spirit that we should do both the quantitative and the qualitative assessment of reliability. Nourouzi also proposes another statistical measure for calculating reliability that we didn't use in the project. We are not, we didn't have really the competencies. It's very it requires a kind of access to our suite. And in that article, for those who are, let's say, at ease with the statistical measures, with understanding the type of coefficients and indices that can be used in reliability measures, it's an article that you should really be reading. We have also Plonsky and Eric, 2016, who conducted a meta-analysis of reliability coefficients in second language research and who arrived at so many issues when they surveyed second language research as far as reliability is concerned. Spuren and Degon, 2010, pretty much very transparent and very straightforward account of reliability and validity issues when they were trying to code coherence relations in texts. And finally, in 2024, there is a book which is an open access, I think, book by Wood et al. Addressing questionable research practices in applied linguistics. It's not about reliability really specifically, but it's about really issues like transparency, coding decisions, comprehensiveness, reporting of research that they find that they are questionable, and they provide also solutions and advice on how really to report your research as ethically and transparently as possible. So these are really useful references, really go to the point, and for people who are keen on to improving the quality of their study by also implementing a reliability measure. That's it, I think. Yes, okay. So thank you very much for attending this presentation, and the floor is yours to for your questions and comments.
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Dr. Bouziri. That was really very interesting, very insightful, clear. I think that with the illustrations that you have provided, you made it clear, accessible to our dear researchers. Thank you for the tips and the practical suggestions, because that's very important. It's good to raise problems, but it's more interesting to try to provide tips and solutions. I would just ask you, if you don't mind, if you could share with us the presentation so that we can share it with the participants. Yeah. It's very, very interesting, and I guess that our dear participants would like to have a copy of the presentation, a PDF copy, so that they can go back to any information, because it's very rich, and I think they would like to see it as a reference, especially the detailed report, the sample reliability.
Sure.
That but gives an example of how we can elaborate it, although we do it here and there as part of the methodology section of the MA or PhD dissertation. I think the guidelines and the sections that you give in your report can be used as a sample, as an example to follow. Thank you very much. Now, if Dr. Mimoun Meliti doesn't mind, we will take a couple of minutes to questions, 5 minutes for questions. The floor is open to questions. Okay, raise your hand if you'd like to. Oh, there are so many questions. I'm sorry, but I'll give priority to young researchers. Okay, we'll start with Najla Bakar, please. Najla? Najla, the floor is yours. Okay, if Najla is not ready yet, let's go to Leila Al-Mahfoudi. Leila?
Good morning, everybody. Okay.
Good morning.
Thank you. So I'm not a young researcher. I'm not young, but I am a young researcher. So thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Basma, okay, for this really amazing and very clear presentation. Especially for me, it comes in the right time, actually. Okay. So I don't know. My question is. If we don't have, if we cannot conduct the intercoder assessment, probably for annotating some processes in my corpus, in my research, for example. So is it sufficient to stick to the intracoding? And is it going to be really, what can I say? Is it going to be,
problem?
Yeah, for the jury, if in my research, of course. Okay, is it going to be sufficient to use only the intra with the specific statistics, if you want?
Well, before responding to this question, I would like to ask you a question. Why can't you recruit a second coder?
Actually, okay, when annotating the processes in transitivity, okay, so sometimes, of course, you can find some. We can find helpful people to conduct the coding, but sometimes we cannot find so many. Okay, so it's really a little bit problematic to distinguish between the different processes sometimes. Okay. If ever I cannot find more than 2 or 3, okay, is it sufficient to use only the intra for my research?
Yeah, I think that the principle is show that you would like to assess the reliability of your coding. Now you can do the intracoder reliability measure, but then you also need to explain why you weren't able to find another coder. The second thing is that you can also adopt a mixed method approach. First of all, comparing doing the intracoder is fine. There are studies where there is nothing that is done, neither intracoder nor intracoder. So doing an intracoder reliability measure is already very good because you are showing your commitment to improve the reliability of your study and your reliability of your coding. You can also explain, and I personally think that would be great if we explain why we were not able to recruit a second coder. I remember that in one of the studies in the corpus that in the project that we are doing, only one paper said, well, we did intracoder reliability because we didn't have enough funding to recruit a second coder. So the person was pretty much explicit about it and said that they did only intracoder reliability measures. It's better than not comparing or not doing anything, right? And I think that your jury will not find that this is a particular issue, but you should be ready to justify the fact that you were not able to find a second coder. The second thing is that perhaps your topic is pretty technical, and there are not many people. This is what I understood, that it's a little bit technical, and that not many people understand that, right?
Yeah, especially in Arabic, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. So there is one thing that you can do, perhaps, is that you take someone who is pretty much familiar with that area of study, and then train that person a lot. Okay, but that person needs, as you said, needs to be committed to the task. They should find that it's beneficial for them. I mean, one way or another. Of course, it can be beneficial financially. So if you give them money, but it can be beneficial because they are interested in the topic. But it can be beneficial if you say, well, you will be part, we can publish together, or I can help you if you have like another reliability task that you will be doing in your research. So you should be like, you should know, I mean, you should first of all seek, that's it.
How to use the best persuasive strategy with the person.
Yeah. But of course, it doesn't make sense if you're going to recruit someone and you know that the person will not be serious about it, right? If you think that the person is just there for the money and they will say yes, okay, on all the decisions that you are going to take, then I prefer that you do intra-coder reliability rather than intercoder reliability.
Okay, thank you. A quick question from. Thank you, Leila. Thank you,
Basma. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam.
So quickly, please, Dr. Hedi Sharfi, raise your hand, please. Najla, are you here, Najla? Okay. So please, Dr. Sharfi, the floor is yours. Your question. Okay, Hedi, we cannot hear you. Sorry, Hedi.
Yeah.
Hedi, we cannot hear you.
Oh, my bad.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. It's been indeed a long time. I'm happy to see you all. I'm happy to see Dr. Bouziri. It's been a long time as well. So, and I'd like to thank you for the very interesting presentation. We keep advocating for mixing quantitative and qualitative methodologies to get the benefit from and the strengths of each one. So I very much appreciate your focus here on the qualitative dimension of reliability, which is, I would say, overlooked. So I have quick questions. I would like to not to take the floor for too long. The first one is, perhaps I would blame this on my knowledge of corpus studies, but is this a published framework, or perhaps if it is, can we probably get the reference or probably your reference so that we give you credit if it's yours, or is it work in progress, or what is it exactly? So I would like.
It's my own work along with Professor Breeze that we have just submitted for review. So we would like to get it published. I hope that we will get it published at some point. We also would. We are planning, if the manuscript is accepted, we are planning to publish the in full reliability report that we, because it is there, but we cannot include it in the, okay, so too long, right? Okay, so, but we refer to it and we would like to share it via IRIS as a database, but it would be a pleasure to share the sample reliability report and the PowerPoint waiting for the publication, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think it. I mean, it get a lot of citations. I would suppose. So, all right. My second question is, it's actually a reflection more than a question, especially when you referred to the idea of when everyone, for example, rates a variable as female only, but almost no one rates it as male. That messes up with the coefficient, kappa especially, I would say. Yeah, absolutely, and that creates a big mess. So perhaps one of the solutions is probably to avoid using kappa altogether in this case, because the variable stops being a variable and becomes a constant. And if technically we cannot be studying constants in a sense. So maybe one solution that came to my mind just while listening is perhaps to transform the variable into female, so frequency of female rather than male and female, and do ICC rather than kappa. So intraclass correlation.
Intraclass, right.
Yeah, intraclass correlation. Coefficients, sorry. So that helps with avoiding this problem altogether. Perhaps one of the solutions could be because it depends on the variable, etc. So I'm not sure if it works for male versus female in particular, but that's probably one of the solutions.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about that. So.
Yeah, perhaps because I've used the example of male-female, but that's not the examples that we find in the corpus.
Yeah.
So corpus-based discourse study. But it's just something that we cannot really identify from the start. It's just, for example, there are, I don't know, many transition markers in the corpus, right? So everything falls into transition markers, and we don't know. Okay, before annotating, we don't know that. So it's kind of the data is skewed towards one particular category rather than another, right? And it's one category among others, right? So yeah, when you say female, male, yeah, of course. But it was just an example to illustrate, okay, how sometimes, okay, because all the codes go for one category rather than another, then you might get a low or negative correlation. Reliability.
Absolutely. Okay, my final question is about the tools that you shared, the recall stuff.
Yeah.
Recall. Okay. So since we are very much into transparency, does it provide the assumptions of each test that it measures, like for example, kappa or ICC or whatever?
First of all, it's an online utility platform, so it allows you to use any coefficient that you decided to use. So it provides, for example, Fliess, Krippendorff, Cohen-Kappa, and I think other coefficients. Now, it's the responsibility of the researcher to select the coefficient that fits the particular data. Okay, that they are annotating. For example, there are coefficients that will work with ordinal data and not with nominal data. Others that work with ranked data rather than ordinal data. And it recall doesn't say, well, it says, well, I mean, if you have ordinal data, then this is what you should use. If you have two coders, this is what you should use. If you have multiple coders, this is what you should use. But then the selection of the coefficient is something that you should do and should decide on first. Okay, the tool doesn't, it's just a tool, right? But it tells you how to do it depending on your data. If you have this type of data, use this. If you have this type of, these numbers of coders, do this, right?
Okay, so you have to check the assumptions on your own later. So perhaps if you do ICC and then you need to check global distribution, then you need to do that yourself.
Yeah, so I need to say, well, for the reliability task that I'm doing, then I will use Cohen-Kappa, right? Or I will use ICC. And I just say very quickly to Dr. Sharfi, is that at the beginning when I was doing the reliability task, there were so many of them, and they said, well, I mean, there are differences, and I went into the literature and stuff. But then, because I've done this task so many times on so many projects, then what I found is that when I compare all the coefficients, they're pretty much the same. So they're not different, at least in the studies that I'm conducting. So I don't find a difference between, for example, Kappa and Krippendorff, like it's a minor difference.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's because of the data that I'm annotating, or because there are actually no differences. And this is something that was found also in other projects, Corpus-Based Discourse projects, where other fellow at that time, PhD students were trying to find out which coefficient led to higher reliability score, and we find that they are pretty much the same. So I don't know. So in the literature, they say they are different, but when you calculate, they are not.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but it's very interesting. But I hope we will have more opportunities to discuss this. I'm sorry. I think Professor Maalej raised his hand. Faisal, are you there? I think he left. I'm sorry. Then there was Dr. Berhaj. Fatma, please. Very quick question, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry for that, sorry.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Dr. Bouziri, for this presentation. It was very nice. But I just wanted to ask you something like a personal question, not really that personal. No, I kept thinking about applying this with students. So, and I'm not sure if you can tell us about your experience if you are supervising MA students whatsoever. And running with time and the deadlines, etc., and not really having time to really, do all this. So does it apply? I mean, are you doing this with MA students, for instance, or is it just for PhD students? So how
Oh, yeah, I'm not, I don't have PhD students actually, but no, I'm not doing this with my MA students for now. But what I can say, I understand what you mean. What I can say is that it's something that you should not plan for at the end. Okay, it should be planned from the beginning. Like you have your introduction, you have your methodology, and it should be from the proposal. From the start, you should plan for the reliability task. And that's something that my evaluation committee during my PhD told me. They told me that from the start. You should do a reliability task. And that was since year one. Since the proposal was accepted. And then you plan for it so that it's not like you don't have time anymore, right, to do this. Because it's not something that you can do in a hurry. You need to plan for it, you need to do it, and sometimes you need to do multiple rounds of reliability to get, to ensure, and change, the coding scheme to make it more robust, to clarify it, and so on and so forth. So plan for it from the beginning. Right? You can also do the reliability task with your own students and try to make sure that you publish together. Okay. So you push them to publish. They have experience. Okay. And you also publish with them. That's not. It's kind of a taboo thing in Tunisia, but it's not. It should not be taboo, right? Okay. I think if you cooperate with your students, they can be author one and you are author two, and you're doing like the job actually, right?
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Basma.
I do have one final comment. Sorry.
Yes.
About. I mean, it's just a tip. I think that the most challenging problem was when you come at the end of corpus annotation and then you find no reliability. This is, I think, the most saddening challenge that you've shown us today. And I think one tip to this is the importance of the pilot study. And this is really something that I'd like to draw the attention of everyone to that. I mean, do not wait till you finish annotating your whole corpus to start with the reliability. So it's better to maybe start with a portion of the corpus, have some reliability. It's like piloting the annotation, piloting reliability, and then going through so that if there are any codes to be revised, it's better to do that at the beginning, especially with the problem of deadlines that Fatma raised. So it's better to, if there is any problem with coding, it's better to handle it from the very beginning, then wait till you finish your whole corpus, and then you have to annotate it again. So it's just a comment, not a question. Now, again, Basma, thank you very much for this very insightful presentation. And I hope we will have more opportunities, and I hope you'll share with us your work once it's published. But in the meantime, we can still cite this presentation as as a reference. We can still cite it. Okay. Now we move to our second presenter today. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Mimoun Meliti from the University of Qayrawaan. Dr. Mimoun Meliti is a scholar specializing in applied genre analysis. His recent works include, in addition to the one he will be presenting today, another one published in 2024 entitled Adopting English as a Language of Instruction of STEM in Tunisian Higher Education Institutions, Promises and Challenges. Dr. Mimoun Meliti is the chair of the English Department at the Faculty of Arts and Humanities of Qayrawaan. He leads academic, administrative initiatives to enhance educational quality and foster research innovation. Dr. Meliti also serves as a senior fellow at the British Higher Education Academy and a visiting scholar at the University of New York. His leadership roles and scholarly contributions focus on advancing knowledge in linguistics, discourse analysis, and English language teaching. Dr. Meliti is going to present his article entitled AI in MA thesis writing, the use of lexical patterns to study the ChatGPT influence. So I guess, Dr. Meliti, this